Hello, everyone, and welcome. Je suis Martine Brisson, and today I'm going to talk about perceptions, right? Because we don't live in reality. Yes, we no nobody lives in reality. There's that, right? Because what we perceive is who who we are in a sense. It's a projection of who we are. Because I've said it before, the way we perceive things is that like our five senses are just bombarded by information and is decoded. And when it's recorded in our brain, because our brain, like I said in the previous video, it's in a nice little box, right? It doesn't see anything. So when it's recorded in our brain, it's recorded according to our experiences of life, our beliefs, our values, whatever is in the database, whatever we feel at that particular moment. And then the brain does its little calculation, it gives us a perception. Okay, so that's why all our senses now we can, the way the brain works, it process at like 400 billion parts per second. But the conscious mind, okay, only goes to, I used to think was a 1,000 to 40 to 1,000 bits per second. I read recently it was 2,000. 2,000 bits per second. Still better than the 1,000 I used to think, but it's still far less than the 4 billions of informations that we have, but only for perceive a little bits of it. For practical reason, right, will be pretty much an overload if we're conscious of all our thoughts and all everything that our senses perceive. But the problem is that our perception of reality is not reality. It's our perception that we have at that particular moment of reality. So that means you don't have to believe everything you think, and you don't have to believe everything that you perceive, right? We all have seen experiences like those fun things now, the optical illusions. Now we can swear that we see something, and then when we see the trick, we say, oh yeah, trick of the mind. Yeah. So we cannot perceive, we know that our eyes did not lie to us, but we have a way of perceiving. Our brain makes us generalize and perceive things a certain way. Um, a few years back, there was this experiment where he was in a classroom in a university. So the professor comes, put in his briefcase, and starts lecturing. And then a thief comes in, picks up the briefcase, and runs away. And now after that, they asked the student that were there to describe the thief, because it was only one thief. And people describe the thief the way they perceive. Now, if they thought that a certain racial group was all thieves, well, guess what? He was from that particular racial group. And if he was only tall people were thieves, well, he was a tall or scrub. Anyway, so they all give their perception of the thief, and they were sure that they were right, because that's what they saw. And then they got the thief, or I don't know if it's I don't remember, it was an actor or a PhD student that was shafted to play the role of the thief. But they got the guy playing the thief come back in. None of the students saw the real guy. None of the description matched the real guy. Because we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we perceive it. And that's why the three principles, they say that we live in separate realities, because or we all have our totally unique vision of the world. And that's why sometimes we have a vision of the world, a perception of the world. And then somebody else has a total different perception of the world, even though we live in the same world. And then we wonder, oh, on earth that person can see the world that way, right? If you look at politics in the States right now, the left and the right, and then everybody is totally sure that they see the world the right way, right? Because everybody sees the world according to who they are and not according to what is actually is. So it works both ways. And sometimes I was, well, how can people see the world this way? Now, what's wrong with them? Well, it's because we live in separate realities. We have a different filtering system, and it gives us a perception of that filtering system. So we all live in a thought created version of the world, every single one of us. So what we see, in a sense, um, is true for us because that's the way we perceive it. And it looks totally real for us. Right? That's the thing. It looks real. Like same thing with those optical illusion when you look at them. No, it looks real, right? So it looks real to us, but it's just a trick of the mind. It's totally a trick of the mind. So it's projecting. It's just projecting who we are. And then we see it and we believe it. No? And so we don't live in a direct experience of the we don't live in a direct experience of the world, but we live in it looks like the external reality is real, but we just live in this. We don't live in a direct experience of the world, but like I said, just the way we perceive it. Another example of that is when apparently when the Spanish arrived in South America, I don't remember if it was a Maya or Aztec on the first try. When they saw the ship arriving, actually they didn't see the ship arriving apparently, even though the ships were arriving. No, they were those are big ships. No, they're not as big as cruise ship today, but no, still bigger than a canoe. And the eyes was seeing the ships, right? But ships in the database doesn't exist, right? Doesn't exist. There are no reference for that. So the brain just delete the information. So even though I see the ships arriving, no perception of the ships arriving. Not they will have changed anything in history, and once they, they come ashore, it's hard to miss, but they didn't see them arriving. Again, a trick of the mind. We don't see reality. We see a perception of reality. So we live in a virtual reality in a sense, but it's that virtual reality is just created by our own mind, totally, right? Via our senses that pick up all this information against our beliefs and value, but we live in a virtual reality, not a real reality. And then consciousness makes it available to us. That's what we see. That's what we perceive. That's the principle of consciousness that makes it visible to us. So you'll say, okay, I don't live in reality. Then what? Well, like I said, that means you don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to believe everything you perceive. And that brings a freedom, in a sense, a freedom to question what you're perceiving. And also it brings a curiosity. It brings a curiosity because let's say somebody sees the world totally differently than you. Instead of what a moron, the first thing, no, but instead of what a moron, you can bring a curiosity. What makes them think? What are their filters? What makes them see the world that way? Just to understand their own filters and maybe your own filter at the same time, right? So you can bring, like I said, a freedom by questioning, and also by questioning your reality, it can remove maybe limitation that you put on yourself. Oh, I'm the type of person that doesn't do this. I'm the type of person that doesn't do that. Well, maybe it's not real, right? What if it's not real? Okay. And also a curiosity that what make the other person think that, right? And he can start a conversation, not a conversation to, oh, you should see the world my way, but just as a curiosity. That reminds me another little story. It's a Wayne Dyer used to tell that story of people that used to go pioneers that go, those wagon trail, whatever, that went to the west, and many of them stopped at a certain watering point. There was a river there, and there was a farmer nearby. And when the farmer saw that there were people camping there overnight on their way west, he stopped by just to ask them, where they were from and where they were going. And people said, "Oh, we're from such and such town, and we're going out west." And when you ask why, he says, some people say, "Oh, the people where we're from, they're a bunch of morons, bunch of idiots, and everybody's in for themselves, and there was no community, and blah, blah, blah." No, very negative. And then they ask, "Have you heard about the community where we're going?" And the farmer said, you will be the same way as the same one as you left. And if the people say, "Oh, we love the community that we were in, everybody was a nice community, everybody was nice, just because of drought or whatever, we decided to go out west, but we love where we're from." "What have you heard about the next community where we're going?" And the farmer says, "The same, you'll find the same people over there. It will be the same way to the community that you left." Right? Because we don't perceive reality. We perceive through our own filters. And they will, the one that left, the bad ones are going to meet the bad one, because that's the way they filter reality. So just an experiment this week, right? Just an experiment. Just challenge yourself, knowing that you're not perceiving reality. What freedom does that give you? Or maybe have a conversation with someone that sees things differently than you, and see what shows up. So that's all I have to tell you today. And on that, I wish you a good end of the week. Cheers.